I don't know about you, but uh, big day here in Illinois. A really big day. A really big day for me. Obviously, you don't have to spend too much time on the DPB show to know who I support for governor. That being my friend, um, and also, just someone who I really lean into for a lot of things. But that's my friend Darren Bailey. I mean, you all know, I'm assuming, if you're watching the DPB show, and if you're not aware of it, my friend Darren Bailey obviously experienced something in his life that none of us should ever have to go through. He had a tragedy which involved his son, his daughter-in-law, and two of his grandchildren. Here 2 weeks ago, actually now 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know. I'm losing time like you guys. I'm just still processing everything that went on. And most of us, as you know, if you're tuning in to the DPP show, once again, thank you. I always appreciate you guys watching the counter climb. You guys are great. Go out, like, subscribe, whether that be YouTube, Rumble, X, or Facebook. Like everything, subscribe to everything. Obviously, the chat is open. We love to interact with you through the comment section. So jump on in there when you have an opportunity. Let us know that you're with us. Let us know where you're tuning in at, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, X, or Facebook. And ultimately, definitely keep the Bailey family, continue to keep the Bailey family in your prayers. But the big news is, and I'm not going to take away from the video, I'm just going to put it up on screen and let you guys see it for yourself. This was yesterday. Darren and Cindy came out with the announcement, and here we go.
Have been the hardest days of our lives, but your prayers, your messages, and your love have carried us, and we are so grateful. Our son Zach and his wife Kelsey lived with faith and purpose. They worked hard, served others, loved their family and community. That's the kind of strength that we're holding on to right now, and it's what keeps us moving forward.
Our family has always been our bedrock. This hasn't been easy, but we want everyone to know that Finn is surrounded by love from our family and from Kelsey's family. And we're so grateful he's being cared for every single day. He's tough, he's full of faith, and he reminds us every day what really matters. We want him to grow up in a place that his parents would be proud of, and we're going to make sure he does.
This tragedy changed our family forever, but it also reminded us why we fight. Zach and Kelsey believed in an Illinois where families could build a future without being crushed by bad government and broken promises. They believe this state could do better. So do we. After a lot of prayer and reflection, Cindy and I have decided we're staying in this race for governor. Not for politics, but for every family trying to make it in a state that's lost its way. For every parent who dreams of a better future for their children. And for every Illinoisan who knows that we can do better. President Trump recently called and he told me, Darren, keep fighting. Don't back down. That's exactly what we're going to do. We've all been through tough times, but what makes Illinois special are the people who don't quit. The ones who work hard, help their neighbors, and believe tomorrow can be better. That's who I'm fighting for.
Illinois doesn't need more politicians. It needs leaders who've walked through the fire and still believe in hope, hard work, and faith. That's who Darren is. That's who we are.
So I'm asking you, stand with us, pray with us, fight with us. Together, we can bring back common sense, honesty, and leadership that serves real people again. Together, we will save Illinois' future. The last 2 weeks,
I said, I'm not crying. You're crying. I muted my mic because I didn't want you to hear me crying. I'm not crying. You're crying. We should all be crying. I mean, Lord, have mercy. How does one even come to a point? You know, we were just literally attending a week ago the funeral of the four beautiful souls, the celebration of life of Darren's family. Granted, we all know that Darren had submitted his packet via the State Board of Elections. That happened here a couple Mondays ago. I was present for that. A lot more that will unfold going forward about that day. But yeah, here we are, folks. This man is living out grief and mourning. But in spite of that, in spite of all of that, he is willing to continue, he and his wife, to fight for the future of our children and our children's children, our grandchildren. And I'm pretty certain that's what Zach would have asked his dad to do. You shared with you, Zach was instrumental in getting Darren to run again. In fact, so much so that he flew Darren and his candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Aaron Del Mar, and his staff member, Jose Durbin, from Marion, Illinois to Bloomington, Illinois to Oak Brook, so they could announce that they were going to run for governor here in Illinois again. And once again, it's not about running for governor. It's running for the future. Illinois is broken. If you're tuning in right now, once again, thank you very much. I always appreciate you guys. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Go out, like, subscribe, and always share. Let us know how you feel about these issues. But Illinois is broken. It's still broken. That's the title of the show. Restoring Fiscal Sanity. And I think it's important we realize that just doesn't happen. In fact, there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done immediately. Now, the election isn't until, well, there's a primary first. Darren does have a primary. Then, of course, the general election is next November. Darren wouldn't even be in the governor's seat until January of 2027. And I can't even imagine, in light of everything happening on the national level, which is a lot of it is good news, we still in the state of Illinois are contending with the policies of what I believe is a tyrannical governor in J.B. Pritzker. And, there's no easy solutions to the health of Illinois. Illinois is created through the powers to be in control, the problems we're in. And that's what I want to cover today. In fact, the cool thing about it is, I believe that I mentioned this just prior to the tragedy, that I had a very special guest that I was going to include in the show and let him kind of give us some ideas of what is transpiring overall as we see it day in, day out. We live in the state of Illinois. Some of you tuning in, you guys are in red states or red counties. And you don't necessarily see the manifestation of what we see. Unfortunately, my county flipped in the last election. It's sad. I believe it's not based on anything other than emotion. And I think it's based on corruption. But yet they sell it as compassion, and it's not compassion, folks. That's not what we're dealing with here. But I do want to get to our guest. My guest today is someone who has spent his life working in the financial industry. He has designations that back up what he does. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We were chattering about that prior to going live today. but his name is Chris Haig. You can call him Christopher too, because that's what his bio says. Christopher A. Haig. He has a charter financial analyst designation. Chris was with companies here, banks here in and around the area. He was with Commerce Trust Company, where he spent 20 years as a senior portfolio manager and team leader, providing investment advice and portfolio management services in the Bloomington, Champaign, and Peoria markets. Upon gaining a thorough understanding of clients' needs and goals, as well as assessing the client's entire financial situation, he worked with the investment research team to construct portfolios to help clients achieve their long-term goals with a deep knowledge of the market and experience in investment management. He served clients with thought leadership insight consulting services. Prior to joining Commerce Bank in 2004, he managed Barden Financial Services, a large investment advisory firm based in California. Yep, he's a raisin. That catered to high net worth individuals. Chris was also employed by Harris Trust and Savings Bank from 1991 to 96 as as a securities leading trader, assisting in the loaning of domestic equities, corporate debt, and international securities. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree in computer science in 1985, his master's in business administration degree, and he actually did that at BU. It goes on to talk about his chartered financial analyst. But more than that, Chris is a funny guy. And I think you're going to find that to be the case. Chris is entertaining, and he knows a lot of stuff. And that's part of the reason I had him on today. And here he is. Chris, welcome to the DPB show.
Well, thanks for the introduction. That was wonderful. I appreciate all the great things you said about me. Before we start, while I'm a retired portfolio manager and an investment professional, I want to let everybody know that if I do mention investment topics, it's just for your entertainment only, and it shouldn't be viewed as an investment advice.
Mrs. Producer, can you put the disclaimer up there in the real small print, and I'll read it real fast. Chris is not able to advice. Okay, now we got that covered. Thank you, Chris. Disclaimer that Chris is not giving financial advice, and Lord knows we need some financial advice, though, not necessarily from a polished professional like yourself, but here in the state of Illinois, Chris, I mean, overall, tell us what you see. I mean, you worked in and around Illinois politics enough to understand the inner workings. What do you see the biggest problems are here in the state of Illinois?
Well, the 600-pound gorilla obviously is the pensions. They're totally underfunded. They're the worst funded pension plan of any state in the nation. Despite having recent upgrades by Moody's, we're still the lowest quality credit rating of any state in the union. So that's really, to me, that's really the biggest issue, is how do they try and get this up to funding? Now their plan is that by 2050 to get to 90% funding. They're at 45% now. Is that
possible?
It's possible if you put the money into it. Looking at the way that they're dealing with it is they want to up the amount that they put into the pension plans in the later years, which all politicians always want to kick things down the road, and that's what they're doing here. The problem with that is that, you know, we want to take advantage of compounding. Compounding is one of the most powerful financial tools in the world. It's rates right up there with gravity. So you really want to have your money working for you as early as possible. And by them delaying the extra payments, they're making it even harder for themselves to catch up.
Hey, one quick little interjection here. Hey, Irma, try jumping over to my personal page on Facebook or to Rumble or YouTube. It looks like, folks, if you're watching via the DPB show on Facebook, it sounds like we've had a little lost connection problem. But sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to interject.
Sure, no problem. So that's that I would say that's that's definitely one of the biggest problems is the pension. But the other problem is that the improvement in the budget has come because of extra COVID money that's starting to run out. So that's also an issue, is how much funding they're getting from that.
Well, and where did they get the funding of the COVID money? Is that all federal money?
Yeah,
it has
federal
to be,
money, right? That's the biggest issue. When you look at the budget overall, it somewhat balances. It's close.
JB says it does.
Well, right. And in researching for today's show, I looked up the Civic Federation has their analysis of the budget. Not exactly a conservative organization by any means. And when you look at that, there's a lot of gimmicks in there. They're going to delay putting money into the road fund so that it stays in the general fund. And then they count that as money to keep the budget balanced. Another one that, they estimate that they're going to pull in a ton of money by doing some kind of plan to get people to pay their back taxes.
Yeah.
That's never worked anywhere.
Even if you've moved out of state.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a major, issue. Those were the biggest. Well, and then they want to increase taxes on casinos because that's always free money, right? So those are the three ways that he's tried to balance it. But even with that, the estimate by this group says there'll still be over a $1.2 billion deficit.
And give that organization again for our audience.
Yeah,
We'll have Mrs. Producer put that up there, that link.
Yeah, it's called the Civic Federation.
Civic Federation, okay.
Yeah, and they belong to this GRA. Is they're kind of like they're like the budget group in Washington that kind of oversees these kind of issues and gives their opinion on them. So
separate from the CBO.
Right. So they have their own. The state has its own, and the state's internal organization differs from what JB thinks the budget's going to be as well. So all these different organizations, none of them particularly conservative in any means, are all saying the same thing, that this budget's not going to balance.
Yeah.
Go ahead. The other big issue that is on the horizon is that the Chicago public schools are in deep trouble. And so there is if we were to have to bail them out, that would really shoot a huge hole in the budget. That would be another, $1 billion to $1.8 billion is the number that people are throwing around for what we would also have to add. So, this budget is only balanced in somebody's mind. It probably won't turn out to be that way unless we get lucky and the economy is really booming and they pull in a lot more taxes than they expect.
Well, we call our governor, King Pritzker, the governor of the land of make-believe, because it seems most of the time when he is speaking, it truly is from the magical kingdom, Fantasy Island or wherever else. But Chris, I want to take each one of those kind of separately, but I think they all share the same common thread, right? So underfunding or unfunding or underfunding the pension program. There is a historical backlog, I should say, or a backstory to how we got to where we are in our pension program, where we are so underfunded. You probably dealt with that in your profession, is the historical nuances of how they went about getting themselves in such deep, can we say deep enough?
Never. Not.
I mean, tell us. I mean, you know the story. You watched it unfold right before your eyes. They robbed Peter to pay Paul. Jim Edgar was the Edgar ramp. They had a lot of things going on. I mean, I've said this many times on the DPB show, you know, when we came out of the chute on Cities 92.9, that in 1999, the state of Illinois had a surplus. By 2001, we were $4 billion in the hole. Now, fast forward to 2025, 2026, we're hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, some estimates say, you know, it's only at 168 billion, but others say it's more like 300 billion in the hole, where we're accumulating interest on our debt at a rate that we don't even make a full interest payment on our debt.
Well, not to be disagreeable, but
that's why you're here. I want your opinion.
We are making our interest payments. Otherwise, the bonds would be in default and we wouldn't be getting upgrades. So we are able to cover our interest expense. But we're not making significant progress on the problems that we have. And, you know, the rating agencies kind of like that we've put aside some rainy day fund money in an account, but that's not really, I mean, that's $2 billion. That's not going to solve the
not when your annual budget is well over 50 billion. You're right. 2 billion doesn't quite agree, but interesting that you bring that up. And once again, DPB and the DPB show, and obviously my guest, I want to be fact checked. I was relying upon information coming from Illinois Policy, obviously a think tank that does research. I thought that the interest of debt accruing on the underfunded liability of the pension indebtedness was accruing at a rate that we weren't making that. But however, I'm sure there's some cost accounting ways of getting around saying that indeed is not the case. So you're saying they have to be.
Yeah. They are using some debt to fund some of the payments out of it, but those are usually short-term in nature. I haven't looked to see what the exact makeup of their debt portfolio is that they use to fund the pensions, but usually those are just short-term, used to fund, you know, the current payments for this year that they can't pull out of the pension plan. But they have money in the pension plan. They just don't have enough to pay for all the increases. You know, there's the cost of living increases that continue to go up. There's every year that a teacher works or an administrator works, their salary goes up, and so then their prospective pension goes up. So there's a accounting way to determine what that total value is, and that's constantly going up. And what's happening is that they haven't put more money in to fix that, and so that's why the funding ratio just keeps going down, because they're not keeping up with it. And there's only two ways to solve that. There's three ways. There's change the benefits. When they've tried to do that, so newer employees are on a different pension schedule than the rest. But the problem that they're having with that is that if they don't pay enough in, then the the idea that these people aren't having to pay Social Security gets wiped out, and they can't afford to have that go away. So they're kind of in between a rock and a hard spot with that particular issue. So they have to pay people enough that they can not, violate the Social Security rule, but pay little enough that they can save some more money compared to what the older teachers are being able to take out of the system.
Well, obviously, people like yourself, they rely upon fiscal responsibility. They rely upon giving good, sound advice, because nobody's going to continue to hire you if you're not able to produce, right? I mean,
Right.
you only have to be to get a job where you get paid and you don't produce, then you're running for public office.
Right.
Obviously, that's where we're at. Yeah. So for instance, you brought up teachers. I mean, there's, I think, 5 public pensions funded by the state, and the teacher's pension, TRS. I'm kind of somewhat, versed in that, because Mrs. Producer, my beautiful wife, newly retired after 35 years of teaching kindergarten in a public school system here where I live, in the Bloomington public school system. When we went to meet with our advisor, our counselor, we were looking at 40% funded is what that public pension program was, meaning they should have, these are just round numbers. If there was 100 billion that should be on hand, they had $40 billion, but yet they were paying out X dollars every year. So they never depleted the 40 billion, because that hopefully is growing, because they're investing that, right?
Yep, they're investing it. Just as a side note, my previous position at Harris Bank, we were the custodian for the Illinois Teachers Retirement System. So they were one of my clients, and I actually went down and visited with them from time to time. So,
and as long as we don't I don't want to get you in trouble here, Chris. I know.
Yeah,
that
well,
retired,
it's a public thing, and they're not custodian there anymore. So there's nothing proprietary as a public entity.
The FBI is not going to come knocking at your door.
No, you can.
Well, not Joe Biden's FBI would be, but
I mean, it's all public record that was the case. So, but what I'm trying to say is that they have to run that that's the other way to help out, is to get superior returns. And that is when, sometime after I left, there was the whole pay for play issue. And that was, so you're paying somebody to get access to be able to manage the money in that plan. And maybe you're not the best portfolio manager, but you are the most connected and willing to pay some other bureaucrat money so that you can get that gig. And that is part of, that, I don't remember what year that was. That was probably about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago when that happened. But
in the heart of the Mike Madigan era.
Yeah, exactly. And so, since then they've quote unquote cleaned it up.
Yes, they cleaned it up. They got rid of Mike Madigan.
But what they did on the flip side to that is, so that's for the teachers, but what they did was they also said all the fire and police departments can no longer manage their own pensions, and they have to group them all together in one big pot. So that changed the whole scenario of how that money is being managed. So I'll just tell you that as a portfolio manager, the laws that govern that were horrible. And the reason they were horrible was, pretty much all police departments and all fire departments have the same age kind of people in them. So they all would have basically the same investment policy statements and same requirements. But because the legislation was so poorly written, what they decided to do was it depended on the size of the municipality as to how you could invest your money. So maybe a normal asset allocation for a pension plan, would be 60% equities and, 40% fixed income or something in that range. Because you were a small municipality, they would only let you invest 20% in equity. So those plans can never really produce the rate of returns that they needed to fund their pensions. And then what would happen is the municipalities would end up paying that bill that the returns should have paid for them. And now they're all working together as one, and I haven't seen what the allocation is for those new funds, or whether they're doing a better job than the local people who are doing it by themselves.
So it's good to see you're back. Thank you, Irma. Irma, you found it, you dialed it in, and it looks like you found us on YouTube. Thank you, Irma, for being back. Boy, I'll tell you, when your audience is willing to go through the gamut of trying to, I can still see there's an exclamation point on the DPB show page, Facebook. For some reason, they don't like that. I did get a warning this week that part of our content that we did on the Trump era versus the Obama era, when it came to, I can't even remember the show. I got the warning sent to me that, it was in regards to healthcare, the Obamacare, the Trump era versus Obamacare. We're not going to go into it today, but because they believe that I might have said something incorrectly, which it sounds like I might be saying something incorrectly. I'm going to pull up the article from Illinois Policy just to go over that again, because I will hate to be misquoted. And, I'm no Rush Limbaugh. I'm not right 98% of the time. In fact, if I can just be right, say 50% of the time, I think I'm doing well. I'm going to go for 50%. But it's good to see you're back, Irma, with us. But Chris, once again, this isn't easy stuff to understand. And I know we're trying to bring it down to a level where our audience can realize how we restore fiscal sanity in Illinois. Give us some idea of what can we do immediately. Like I said, we're still months away from getting a new governor in office, where at the very least, through executive caveat, he can lock down and shut down some of this stuff. Now that's a Band-Aid approach, right? But what do we need to do if J.B. Pritzker woke up tomorrow and said, I'm going to be a fiscal conservative, not that he has ever been a fiscal conservative, what can we do? What could JB do tomorrow to fix some of the problems in Illinois?
Well, it's really about cutting the benefits that you can cut that aren't mandatory. The pensions are mandatory. They're required to pay those to the people, so they can't just cut those. There's other things they can cut. Some of them, you have to go through each of the items, but when you look at what's the largest percentage of expenditures, you look at healthcare and human services, how much fraud is in those things. Are the people that are applying for those being properly vetted? Are the people that pass away being taken off the system? There's all those kind of issues that you need to resolve. Make sure that you're not paying people that don't deserve those policies. Seems like we're getting away from maybe paying for some of the illegal aliens on the system. If we do that's helpful, because that money does, we can't go to the idea of just cutting taxes at that point, because the money needs to go to the pension plan to bring that up to a reasonable funding level. So you really, as much as there's not a whole lot of flexibility because it goes, we're so far behind on the pensions that the money has to go there.
What is a reasonable funding level? Because you had mentioned the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund with the police and fire. And I know that they brag themselves. They love to let you know that they're 92% funded. Do you believe that's true? Are they 92% funded in their pension?
Well, the ones that I was familiar with, they were well funded, and they had actuaries who were doing the funding. I don't know what it looks like when you aggregate all the what was happening in Chicago. I don't know. Probably not fully funding it would be my guess. So, those kind of things you'd have to go back and see where it all fell out when they lumped everything back together.
Well, and you brought up that was one of your examples of what is one of the systemic problems right now. If you're just joining us here on the DPB show, thank you once again. If you're seeing this guy sitting next to me, this isn't DPB, obviously, doing his usual renegade show by himself. He's got a guest. His name is Chris Haig. Chris comes with a plethora, a load, a truckload of experience of understanding finances. There it is, Christopher Egg Haig. I love it. And he's a CFA. That's Chartered Financial Analyst. Now, Chris, this is a good segue, I think, to that as we take a little brief interruption from the Chicago public school system and what they've done as far as a debacle, because that debacle now is impacting those of us who live in free Illinois, because there is a separation of this state. There are counties that fiscally can manage themselves. Unfortunately, they feel the pressure that is the downward pressure that's being put on them by the largest city in the state of Illinois, being the city of Chicago, and specifically the Chicago public school system, which is just a runaway nightmare. But before we get there, CFA, we were talking about this because I think this is fascinating. A chartered financial analyst. You were one of very few people back in the day, because we just read your bio earlier. You were at the Bradley University. I'm not going to take that personally. I cheered for Bradley University. I liked Roger Fagley. I liked Hersey Hawkins. I liked J.J. Mitchell.
Hersey, by the way.
You went to school. I'm sure he was not in one of your classes.
He actually was. He was a very good student. He had his briefcase and he went to class, and I think he did quite well. So,
well,
I don't know his grades. Obviously.
I don't want to judge basketball players, and
there were other ones where you would have been correct on.
That would have been
not Hersey Hawkins.
Okay, I'm going to give kudos to Hersey Hawkins. He's probably, I don't even know where Hersey's at. I'm sure if he was carrying a briefcase in college, he's probably based on. He did have a short tenure in the NBA.
Actually, he had a pretty decent tenure in the NBA. He was.
See, I'm wrong again.
I
told you 50% of the time.
I know he was probably there more than 5 years, is my guess.
Well, more than 5 years, I think that qualifies you for the NBA pension program.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't quote me on this, but I do remember seeing an article where he is an independent businessman at this point.
And that would not shock me. He was very. You could tell he carried himself in a manner that he was about business. So, and he played that way. I mean, when he was on the court, there was nothing like it. But getting back to chartered financial analysts, so you were one of few people. So now that organization has expanded internationally. Tell the audience a little bit about, the accreditation that comes with being a CFA.
Right.
Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's a body of knowledge that you're required to learn that is probably close to 2,000 pages of reading for each test. There's 3 tests. The
So
it,
not quite the state budget. See,
no,
you
not,
needed you need at least 3,500 pages to be studying the state
yeah,
budget.
exactly.
So
Well,
keep going.
yeah, and it covered a variety of different investment topics. So you had, you had ethics was one of the big ones that was always part of the test. That was probably 20-30% of the test. And then there was economics, statistics, equity analysis, fixed income analysis, general portfolio management in general, options, futures, those kinds of things. So there were 3 different tests that you had to pass. Each test was about a 6-hour test. It's changed a little bit since when I took it, as I was mentioning. The second and third test, you got the little blue book and you hand wrote all your answers in it. Now it's a lot more multiple choice because of the number of people taking it. When I took it, it wasn't quite as internationally recognized. Now it's really kind of the standard for the world of finance, and people are taking it all over the world.
And what is the passing rate, or what was it when you?
Yeah, the passing rate for each of the tests was pretty close to 45%. So 55% of people in any one year were failing that test.
So actually more than the graduation rate from the Chicago public school system.
Yeah, well, I mean, 0 is 0. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry. See, I'm making light of that situation.
Well, so, that's the other thing. We're continuing to spend a whole lot on education, and are we getting our money's worth out of it? When you look at the number of people who are actually reading at grade level, whatever.
Competency, yes. The proficiency rates are deplorable. I mean, it's sad that we continue to try to lie about what truly is going on in our public school system. However, we continue to fund it at a rate which is bringing us right back to the Chicago public school system. When you have hundreds of schools which are designed to house 1,000 to 1,200 students, and they house 95, but yet they're fully staffed.
Right. Well, and I find that, to me, I think the administration level is excessive in most schools. I mean, you've got the principal, and then you've got the assistant principal, and then you've got the assistant to the assistant, and you just keep, bringing up the amount of administrative costs.
Which there is no deviation when it comes to, there's not a separate pension fund in the teacher retirement service for superintendents and administrators. They're all bunched together in that program, even though compensation, as you just declared, is crazy what they pay administrators and superintendents versus our K through 12 subject matter teachers who are probably doing, I don't know, Mrs. Producer, probably has a number on this better than mine, but I bet you they're doing, if not twice, 3 times, maybe even 4 times the work that our administrators are doing. Not to say there isn't a lot of paperwork, because we are bureaucratically loaded down with a lot of stuff.
Right. Well, and going back to the budget, that is also problematic because of all the federal rules that are that are part of getting the money from the federal government. Then you're on the hook to listen, follow their procedures for certain things, kind of like what we talked about with changing the policy for pensions, where now you're up against Social Security rules. I'm sure there's rules for each of the different federal blocks of money that you get, that you have to do certain things to be able to get it. And so If you don't do that, then you lose that funding, and then you're even worse shape. Because, you know, when you look at the budget, it's a pretty significant portion of the budget comes from the federal government. Let me pull up my little cheat sheet here, but
well, while you're pulling up your cheat sheet, I'm gonna zap this onto the stage here real quick, and I'm gonna put it up so we can. Now, Chris, back in 2017, as you're looking that up, I pulled this article up because this is where I was getting my information from. Okay, Illinois Policy wrote an old article by Michael Lucci. Budget plus tax, March 6, 2017. A golden rule to finance is this: debt that can't be paid won't be paid. Illinois isn't covering the interest payments on its pension debt. Those interest payments total $9.1 billion a year. This is the reason Illinois pension debt continues to grow, as with personal credit card debt, until the interest is paid off, none of the actual debt gets erased. Illinois pension debt is so large that its unlikely payments will cover the interest on the pension debt until 2028, which is now just a couple of years away versus when this article was written, according to the November 2016 special pension briefing from the Commission of Government Forecasting and Accountability. I just pulled that up, Chris, because obviously I remember that, and I don't want to say something that is misleading.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. and so I would have to dig into what they're actually getting at and what they're trying to.
Well, I'm going to send you the article,
you know,
Chris, because I trust your opinion. I mean, you just heard, this is a man, obviously, if DPB is spending time hanging with Chris and his wife and my wife, we go to dinner. I've watched this man. I have total confidence. I didn't say faith. No, I only have faith. My faith is in God alone. Chris, no, that's not an insult to you. My faith is not in you, but my confidence is that you can take this article and come back, because, Chris, just so you know, I've quoted that article now. Well, as I just read, it came out in 2017. I've been going on the air and basically bloviating as if that was the gospel. My Mrs. Producer has always cautioned me about certain sources. One of them is Illinois Policy. There are a couple other ones. WirePoints is a little bit better, but, you know, they were run pretty much by the same management team. But there's another publication out there that's not as accurate. But go ahead, Chris.
My thought, just off the top of my head, was $9 billion a year is a lot in interest, and what that at 4% or whatever, the government, 10-year treasuries at 4%, and you get a discount for it being tax exempt bonds. So I'm not sure. It looks like they're putting that interest on a whole lot of money, and I'm not sure that all that's necessarily being borrowed. I mean, the fact that they're underfunded doesn't mean that they borrowed the money. They don't need that money until the obligations are due, which is, the pension checks go out in the mail. That's when they have to have the money. So until that time, it's a theoretical obligation and not an actual one. To pay an actual one, you have to borrow the money, but to pay the theoretical one, you don't have to borrow the money.
So folks, if you're tuning in and you were here at the beginning and you're hearing this very intelligent person talking about the financial state of Illinois, which no one seems to want to address in an honest, open manner, we're going to do it here on the DPB show, Restoring Fiscal Sanity. But as I started saying, if you're just tuning in and you see Chris Haig sitting there next to me, my financial not advisor, but financial expert, someone that can come and talk through the numbers a little bit about how we go about truly bringing fiscal sanity back to Illinois. Chris, I like the backdrop. As the sun has gone down, you have become more prevalent.
Yeah.
Chris is not in
Oh,
a
that's how.
studio. Chris is retired. Uh, Yours truly isn't smart enough to be retired. That's why I'm still doing this. That's why I'm still doing the things you've heard about. Chris can be in the luxury, enjoy the luxury of his family room and be in studio with DPB. But Chris, no, I do like the look. I might have to get you some backlighting though if we went too much past 5 o'clock, because it is Central Illinois. The time change
Well,
has
yeah.
happened. We can't do anything about that. Chris, I don't know about you, but I never do well with daylight savings time. Obviously, much better, like most of us, in the fall than in the spring. I do not spring forward very well, but I definitely fall back pretty well. I think most of us do. My beautiful wife and Mrs. Producer says Illinois policy is good. Now that's a good rating from Mrs. Producer. That's pretty good. She said, then she goes on to say Illinois Review is about 50-50. Well, Mrs. Producer, that's about your husband. Tanya, that's I'm about right 50-50. But you know what, Chris, you just took that article from, and let me throw it back up here real quick, from Illinois Policy, from Michael Lucci. I'm going to send this off to you so you can do a little more research because, okay, officially I am declaring that we need to get Chris Haig back on our show because I'm looking at the clock. And granted, Mrs. Producer always tells me it's your show. You can go 4 hours. Unfortunately, we have a dinner date tonight. DPB is 95.10. What? Did you mean
there you go.
did you
I
mean
like
95
that
100?
sounds like the math they're using for the budget.
Mrs. Producer, I wish I were 95.10. But I'm going to pass this on to you because officially I'm now declaring on the DPB show because I am the king of the DPB show. I've crowned myself the king. I will be the king until I'm enthroned. There have been many people who've tried to take me off the show, but no, for now, I am the king of the DPB show. I guess that's a kind way of saying the golden microphone. Rush Limbaugh, obviously, God rest his soul. As Chris said, he'd love to have a golden microphone, but I do believe we can get Chris a microphone. I have a spare one here. He would probably like to have one of these fancy podcasting microphones, but we are up against the end of the show. So I do believe that we need to get you back because there's a lot of this that we have to continue to unpack. Chris, I'm pretty certain I can say with confidence, and this Mrs. Producer, my lovely, beautiful, amazing, wonderful wife, I'm 100% sure of. The problems with Illinois are not going to be solved by the next governor election.
No, the pension is just too extreme for that to happen. There's just it's something that they have to chip away at because it's too big to handle in one chunk.
Well, and Chris, right now there are so many fires that are out there and so many lies being told, and that's the other thing. I mean, I'm certain that you and people like you can figure out workarounds when you're dealing with, technically speaking, someone had to share this with me. The state of Illinois constitutionally cannot declare insolvency, meaning the state can't go bankrupt. I mean, are you aware of that, Chris?
No, I don't think well, the federal government always has money that they can print, so they have a different escape hatch. I don't know what the
state,
no state has ever tried to declare bankruptcy.
Well, there you go, Chris. You got your homework for the next show. You can talk about this.
I have a bunch of homework. I have to research that article and figure out where they got that $9 billion a year in interest. I probably should try and see if I can find what our investment policy is for those pension plans and see whether we're taking enough. The problem is risk is a two-edged sword, and you need the risk to get the higher rate of return, but then if it goes bad, then you set yourself back even farther. So, but we need the returns.
Yeah. Well, we need a lot of things. And I think the show needs somebody like Chris Haig. And so I'm hopeful that you guys enjoyed having Chris as our guest. Jim Snyder, you right. Declare it right, declare it loud. All hail to the king, laugh out loud. Hats off to my friend. Thank you, Jim. Which brings us to the point, Chris. Now, by all means, Chris, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable here on the DPB show. That's not my intention.
Okay.
But I also will never apologize for what I do every show. It's tradition. No, it isn't. It's an obligation. I said tradition. It's an obligation that I end my show in prayer. Now, typically, my guests have to, but I'm not going to consider you a guest. I'm considering you a frequent flyer that will be back. And maybe someday, Chris, you will feel a little nudge to pray us out of our show. But I actually say a prayer because, Chris, right now, I mean, if you tuned in and you were on the front end of the show and you saw the video by Darren and Cindy Bailey, we need to continue to be a nation that is on our knees. We were founded by men who believed in prayer. I believe we are a nation who drifted away from prayer. I think we still, as a body of Christ, don't do the job we need to do of walking out a faithful life in a lot of ways. I mean, I believe that the state of Illinois is bankrupt. Illinois is broken, as the DPB show used to lead off with on the radio. And that brokenness can only be fixed through, I believe, this is my opinion, through faith. And that faith is prayer is part of faith. So, Chris, indulge me. I pop off my hat to expose my follically challenged, need we say any more? But I'm going to go ahead and just end us in prayer. Now, Chris, just so you know, and you probably are aware of this, we have a little afterglow program that the audience doesn't get to see. I hang around, my guest and I kind of banter back and forth a little bit. So once I end the show, don't just hang up. Okay. Don't hit the X button. Okay. And I won't discontinue the button for you. So with that, Lord, I pray. We showed the video of Darren and Cindy. The hearts of Darren and Cindy. We pray for the Bailey family. We pray for the Aldridge family, Kelsey's family. Lord, what a loss that is. What a tragedy it is. Lord, they need you. They need your strength. They need your power. I know that you already reside in their hearts. Lord, continue to inspire them. Continue to give them those little nuggets that keep them going forward in life. I don't know, Lord. I can't even begin to fathom how I would be even able to take to a camera and talk about life if I were to lose my children, our children, my Mrs. Producer and I, our children, our grandchildren. I mean, I have no words for that. So Lord, be with them, continue to guide them, continue to guide all of us. And God, turn hearts and minds and souls towards you. Restore the state of Illinois. Restore the United States of America. In God we trust. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, folks. That's it. We'll be back on Thursday. Like I said, I'm going to try to get Aaron Delmar and Darren Bailey lined up for the DPB show. Stay tuned. I'll keep you apprised of it. As I say when I end the show, I love you. I know Chris Haig loves you. He really does. You can tell. Look at that smile on his face.
Absolutely.
But Jesus loves you more. We will be back here Thursday Same bat time, same bat channel. Can I say that? That's probably copywritten. Don't worry, this show will now get nixed by YouTube because I happened to say something I shouldn't have said. But we will be back here at the DPB show. And until then, we bid you farewell.